Thank you guys for sticking around, and hope you guys enjoy Jordana Spiro's film Night Comes On.
Thank you so much for being here.
My name is Carlos Aguilar. I'm with
breath.
MovieMaker Magazine and other outlets, and it's my pleasure to be talking to you today about this beautiful film. You made it, you made it.
We couldn't figure out the elevator, so I was carrying I have to catch a flight, and I was carrying my luggage up the stairs. So anyway, I guess I should work out more. Hi, everybody.
So I'll have a couple questions for you, and then we'll get into some questions from the audience that I have here. So tell us a little bit about, the inception of the film. I know that you work with Peace for Kids, an organization that works with children in disadvantaged situations, and you met your co-writer Angelica Nwandu there. So you want to, walk us quickly through the process of the inception of the film?
Well, it started from my having this idea of making a film about somebody who was really kind of cast aside, who felt lost, and who desperately wanted a purpose. And I was projecting a lot of myself into that. At the same time, I was volunteering with a remarkable organization that's here in Los Angeles, and called Peace for Kids. And I learned about what it means to age out of foster care. And I noticed that a lot of the kids that were on that precipice of aging out had a lot of the same feelings that I felt like I was having, and yet they were having them in the context of no safety net around them, no support system, a million forces acting against them, unresolved trauma that's never been addressed appropriately in their, in their background that put them in foster care in the first place. And I just thought, how in the world are these kids gonna do this if I just had an awful lot of admiration for the bravery that they were showing, and I was very inspired by them. And so when I went to film school, I decided in the course of that I really wanted to be the driver of my own stories, and I wanted a foundation underneath me. And so I went to Columbia for film school, and there this story just kept sticking with me, and I kept developing it, and I coincidentally named the character Angel. And when I was ready to write it, kind of out of its, I kind of wrote a treatment for it, and had a scene outlines and everything like that. And then when I was ready to write it into like a script format, I just felt it would be irresponsible of me to write it without the voice of somebody who could speak to that experience firsthand. And so that's when I reached out to Peace for Kids, and I asked Saeed Gale, the person who runs it, if he might know of a young woman who had recently aged out, for whom this might be a win-win situation. They could teach me about their experiences, and I could teach them whatever little I knew at that point about filmmaking. And he introduced me to Angelica Nwandu. We met, and we found that we wanted to express, we had a lot of similar feelings about what we want to express and how we want to be storytellers, and from there we just hit the ground running.
So how the relationship with a co-writer works when it's so intimate and personal, and at what point did you started thinking about casting when you're writing this project that is so personal and intense? Did you have certain characters or types of people in mind, and how did that develop?
We worked through a variety of different methods. We brainstormed a lot together on the phone. We would trade scenes back and forth. We'd say, like, who has a better handle of this scene? Okay, you attack it or I attack it, and then let's flip-flop it, and sort of. Yeah, we would just do that kind of thing. Watched a lot of movies, discussed them. Casting, no, I didn't really get into casting until we were at a draft that we could start going out to financing for. And then at that point, when we started going out to financing, that's when I started to cast. because I knew I also wanted to have a street casting approach. So so I knew that had to start very early on, just because the cast is so young. Yeah.
So with your star, Dominic Fishback, who plays Angel, and with Tatum, who plays Avi, one of them is a professional actor and the other one's a non-actor. So tell us about
a
professional actor now, of course. What was the casting process like, as you mentioned, street casting, and how did that evolve?
Yeah. It was over a year. We saw probably around 1,000 young ladies, everywhere from churches to community groups to foster organizations to everywhere. We met Tatum, who plays Abby, at a step competition in the Bronx, and she's obviously incredible, and so that was just a matter of like finding that awesome needle in the haystack. And I had two incredible women working with me, Marlena Scrobe and Olivia Kresser. And it was just, they were scouting constantly. And then on the weekends, because I was working on the film on the week, so on the weekends I would also be putting out flyers, approaching kids on the street and really trying not to be creepy. And God bless libraries. There's this thing called a library. Libraries were very, very helpful to us because they gave us free space to audition in. So especially the Brownsville Library. I'm just like shouting at the Brownsville Library. They were incredibly helpful to us because we have to audition these kids, and it has to be a very clearly safe space because you're just meeting them on the street or at schools and things like that. But the kids that we would meet, through the flyers, everything like that, the libraries were huge for us. Sorry, what was the rest of your question?
In 2012, you made a short film called Skin, which also has, a young cast. What is it about working with young talent that you enjoy or that you find compelling?
I just love children so much. I love their life force. I love their honesty. I love their openness, and I just love kids. And yeah, that's kind of it. I mean,
is it easier to work with kids or more difficult? Is there an advantage to work with someone that perhaps doesn't have the training, the professional training that others do?
It's just different. People say kids are difficult to work with. I don't personally find that. I find that you have to probably work a little harder to find the right kid, because you can't necessarily anticipate that they'll be able to like change into a different character. Like Dominique is nothing like Angel. But you can rely on her and her training and her skill set and her maturity and her age to, that just age meaning just that, not that she's a child, to be able to kind of morph into a different person. But so once you've cast the right kid, then it's really just such a pleasure.
So once you had both of the actresses and you were working with them, what was the process like to develop this banter, this sisterhood that we see on screen?
Well, I knew that I wanted a long rehearsal period. And by long, I mean a few weeks. Not every day, because also it's a kid, so it's a couple of hours a day. We had the nice benefit that, the little boy that she's playing with in the bedroom, that's actually her little brother. And he's the same age as my daughter. So it was kind of sweet because they would come over, the family would come over, and my kid, it was great because my kid got a play date. And they're boyfriend, girlfriend now. And, we have ridiculous pictures. Anyway, aside. So we would do a lot. Rehearsal was very, very important. And I'm fortunate in that both of them are totally game and willing to do that. It was just about, rehearsal time was about, on the one hand, just going through each scene and making sure they understood the beats of the scene. They understood what it was about. Angel, you know, lives so much in silence, so it was really trying to make sure that Dom felt loaded in all the detail of what's going on in that silence, so she could have something to play and make that feel really active. And for Tatum, it was really just making sure she understood, you know, the emotional content, or if there was ways in which we needed to help her find substitutions or things like that. And then, you know, having 15-second dance parties and, you know, like all the silly stuff that just sort of helps shake you up. And especially when, you know, Tatum was only 9 when we filmed the film. So, you know, it was just finding ways to connect. It was kind of interesting, actually, because they got so close and had such a beautiful relationship that then when we went to set, and Dom kind of likes to stay in character and sort of stayed a little bit removed from Tatum. And Tatum at one point was like, I think Tom's mad at me. So we had to, you know, we had, and it was actually kind of great because we had all this sisterly feelings of like longings and, you know, this sort of beautiful hero worship that Tatum had for Dom. I mean, she put Dom up on a pedestal, and it was really sort of sweet. And so, yeah, it was, you know, rehearsal. I really am a fan of rehearsing.
So you've done, you know, a lot of work as an actress yourself. So do you compartmentalize your work as a director, as an actress? Do you separate them, or does your work as an actress influence how you direct?
Well, I mean, I guess, you know, that I'm an actress is such an integral part of me as a person that I'm just a, you know, that I don't even know how I would separate it. I think if it's about, you know, what did I learn from being an actress that I was able to bring to directing, you know, I don't fully know, but I think it probably is that I think I'm all right at recognizing when an actor needs help getting pushed out of a comfort zone if a scene's not working, and help finding a different angle, or when the words are just not working for them, and when the scene itself needs an adjustment. I think I have a good sense of that, and detecting because every actor needs something different, and you know, what are the needs of that actor. I think I have an all right sense of being able to kind of hone in on that and service that.
You know, now that everyone has seen the film without the fear of spoiling it, you know, that final sequence with the father, how do you prepare an actress, or how do you work with them to, you know, to walk into the set when you're dealing with such an intense emotional sequence?
You know, Dom didn't really need a lot in that scene, so I didn't, not too much, you know. Same with John. Yeah, you know, that's where it's, you know, working with, you know, adult professional actors is nice, because then they're doing their own homework on the scene, and yeah, I can't think of anything specific off the top of my head for that one.
We could go to the questions that the audience who wrote before the screening.
Before the screening?
Yeah. So some of them might want to switch their questions now. Nicole is asking you, how much writing experience did you have prior to co-writing this film, and how long did the process take from start to finish?
Hi, Nicole. Hi. I had written a couple of scripts through the screenwriting program at Columbia, and had written a couple of short films. But this was my first feature that's been made. It took a long, you know, it's tricky because I had worked on it so much prior to, you know, I'd sort of done the staring at the blank page and kind of making something out of the blank page work before I met Angelica. But then when Angelica and I met, of course, the script becomes its own thing. So let's take it from that point, because before that it was like I was working on it kind of here and there, but probably started in 2009. And then when I met Angelica 2013, the summer of 2013, and we worked on it, for about a year, and then I started looking into financing, and then I kept kind of working on it a little bit more and would send her stuff, and she, of course, was very busy building a giant media empire with the Shade Room. But so we would work. So it's hard to say, because from 2009, but only like 6 months here, 6 months there, 6 months. Was it like daily work on it? So it's kind of hard to say.
And then you took it to the Sundance Screenwriters Lab.
Yeah, we took it to the Sundance Lab January of 2014. Yeah.
This one's from Nikki Jacobs, and says, what did you want to show about disadvantaged youth A Night Comes On, and what other films of a similar subject have not shown before?
I think that we don't often get to really sit inside the experience of a young woman that's having a kind of an existential crisis, if you will. Especially, and sit in the sensitivity of that, in the gracefulness of that, in the difficulty of that, and really be inside of that experience with a lot of empathy, but also not shying away from the difficult. And I think there's plenty of movies where men have that opportunity, and I don't see a lot of movies where women get to have that opportunity, where we really get to sit and explore what that experience is like. So that.
Sarah is asking, what do you look for in an actor in order to collaborate with him or her?
Curiosity. I want, I've learned that nobody is going to care about the project as much as you will. No one will have the fortitude. No one will have the you'll find people that will get very close to it, and you'll be utterly and deeply grateful for them, and you'll know that the film would not have been able to have been made without them, but you'll constantly be the one that's really pushing it all the way until the end, or at least, if it's a difficult film to make. So with the actor, I want them to care deeply. I want them to be willing to do work, whatever that work process is like for them, but that they're committed to it. And then in this case, because also I'm making a story with Black characters, and I'm not, and I'm obviously really well aware of the incredible degree of misrepresentation that's out there. I really wanted to know that the actor would feel comfortable telling me on set or in rehearsal if I was communicating something incorrectly. That was something that Dominique and I talked about very candidly at the beginning, just to make sure that that I opened the door to letting her know that I was comfortable with her telling me, and I asked her to tell me if something just didn't feel right. As pure as my intentions might be. Yeah.
Did working with Angelica also help in that sense?
Well, that's a given. I mean, of course, absolutely. But when you make a film, there's the there's this expression that I like. They say, like, when you make a film, you're actually making 3 films. They make the film that you write, the film that you shoot, and the film that you edit. Because, of course, there's so many things, so many compromises, so many budgetary, weather, everything that gets in the way in the you know, just in each process, that changes need to be made constantly. And so when we're flying by the seat of our pants, or we need to change a scene, or we need to move it into improv, or whatever we need to do on set, when the writer, you know, and the writer relationship is, or the, you know, the is not the primary focus anymore of the process, that there would be like checks and balances along the way.
Sure. Anne is asking, please speak of your experience with the Adrian Shelley Fellowship. I'm not a...
Hello. They were wonderful to us. It's her husband that runs the foundation, Andy. I you know, heard about it, and so there's an application process, and you explain why, if I remember correctly, what was in the application, but you have to explain, you know, what you would do with those funds, and why you would need them through this foundation. And for me, it was I applied to get funding, to get a grant to help with the street casting process, because I also felt like our financing, you know, would depend on being able to show who is this awesome 9-year-old kid who's going to be able to come in and play this character. Because you read the script and you're like, well, that's cool, but what 9-year-old kid is going to be able to do that? Turns out it's Tatum Marilyn Hall, who really kind of mopped the floor with the challenge. So yeah, that was the. So I applied, and then I received a grant from them.
So it's like pre-production funds.
Right. Yeah. In this case, it was development funds. I don't know actually if they have any limitation on their funds, if it's post-production, production, or pre-production. I don't actually know that, because I sought after development funds. Yeah.
You should tell everybody who Adrian Shelley is.
Well, is everybody here familiar with Adrian Shelley? Adrian Shelley is this wonderful actor who turned director and writer, and was murdered, leaving behind her husband. I'm going to start crying. Her husband and her child, and her husband has turned the tragedy into trying to find ways to continue his wife's mission. So he supports female filmmakers. Yeah, the Adrian Shelley Foundation. He's an incredible person, and it's a tragedy.
We have another question. AJ asks, what's the best advice you receive career-wise?
Hello. Well, one would be from Ramin Barani, the director Ramin Barani, who I was very fortunate that he was my mentor at Columbia. And he said, when I was sharing with him the struggle to get financing for this film, and how I was trying to go through production companies at first. And he said, the problem with that is that your film is speaking a language that production companies don't speak, because you're trying to make something out of the mainstream that can't really prove profit on paper, and you might be in that cycle forever. Because, of course, you give it to a production company, and it's like 2 weeks before they read it, and then 2 weeks before you send a reminder, and then another, and then it's like everything is like in 2 weeks, and 2 weeks, and 2 weeks, and you're like constantly, and then it's like a year passes, 2 years passes, 3 years. And so he said, so what you have to do is you have to set a date. That you're going to film this film on this date, and, you know, give yourself a break. Don't make it like tomorrow. And you're going to film it no matter what. And, you know, no matter whether you're doing it with your iPhone or whether you're doing it with, 35 millimeter film, but you're going to do it. And that was really helpful for me because it just made me see that while we were exploring, and there's nothing wrong with exploring the avenue of production companies and all that, but to do it alongside of looking for other means, and don't wait for that, because chances are, unfortunately, at this moment in time, they won't come through. So I thought that was pretty helpful.
So before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, have you shown, or do you have any plans of showing the film to Peace for Kids or people working in the foster care community?
Absolutely. Actually, Zaid Gale, the executive director of Peace for Kids, and Angelica and I are talking actually today about, setting up that screening, seeing if we can get DCSF there, seeing if we can get other organizations as well, in terms of Peace for Kids. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
My name is Joni Boville, and I am a licensed foster parent, so I just wanted to make a comment that I thank you for the authenticity of the way you portrayed that whole system. And then a quick question I wanted to ask you, did you give any thought to, or how did you decide to cast them, not some non-Black actors? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a really good question. First of all, thank you for saying that. That's just about the most meaningful thing I could hear, because that was deeply important to me. And you're amazing. What you're doing is amazing. And I'm not as selfless as you, and I think you're the shit. It's remarkable what you're doing. Yes, as a matter of fact, it was kind of interesting. It was not an automatic that Angel would be Black. Because Peace for Kids services the Compton, Willowbrooks, Watts area, the Peace for Kids is predominantly Black, the kids that go there. And because that was kind of my main place of inspiration, I don't know if you know, like when you're in that writing process, you kind of have a person's face, but it's not a person's face. It's sort of like a little bit of a kind of like a dreamy, sort of blurry image of somebody. She was, I want to say Black in my mind, if I can remember that sort of early on. But then when Angelica and I started working together, we had a conversation. We had several conversations about that. Should she be Black? And also because we were concerned because Angel's character is stepping into a conversation with criminality involved. But we felt that because where we kind of landed was several things. That Angelica is Black. And that the foster youth population is unfortunately very disproportionately Black. It felt like it would be more wrong to make her white or another race. It just felt, for some reason for us, it felt appropriate. Having said that, then it became very fraught for me because I was very concerned that I would get something wrong. So that was a challenge for me. Yeah, and I'm sure Angelica would have some very interesting things to say about what that was like for her then, but for me it just I felt really responsible, and I didn't want to be yet another person that's exploiting or creating misrepresentation. So, yeah.
So the film comes out this Friday, correct?
This Friday, August 3rd. In here, it's going to be playing at the Lemley's NoHo, and video on demand on iTunes and Amazon. And yeah.
Tell your friends. Thank you, Jordana.
I just want to say really quick, I just want to say it's such an exciting thing for me to screen here and talk to you guys. And SAG is obviously such a meaningful part of my life. And thank you guys for being here and supporting this film and listening to me blab. And I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.